Relative Stress Index definition. The relative stress index is an oscillator indicator that makes it possible to distinguish market tension, thus period of oversold and overbought. Let's see the concept of oscillators. Oscillators are usually price derived functions that detect areas of oversold and overbought shares. Those periods of tension are therefore likely to result in a reversal of the trend. Namely, the best known oscillators are the relative stress index and the stochastic, which are combined to create the stochastic indicator RSY. The relative stress index is a bounded indicator that measures the internal strength of the value, thus the deviation of upward versus downward average. The stochastic oscillator is also a bounded indicator that compares the closing price to the price deviation over a given period. The relative stress index is so-called oscillators indicators that move between the 0 and 100 bonds. According to its evolution through different zones, we will obtain indication about the psychology of the operators. There are three distinct zones: the oversold zone, the neutral zone, and the overbought zone. The level of the different zones may differ because it will be determined according to the calculation period used. In practice, the relative stress index uses a period of 9, 14, or 25 sessions. It is therefore essentially an indicator to be used in the context of a short and medium-term analysis. Therefore, if you use a period of 9 sessions, from 0 to 20, the value represents an oversold area. From 20 to 80, the value will be within the zone of neutrality. And from 80 to 100, the value detects an overbought zone. Now, if you use a period between 10 and 14 sessions, from 0 to 30, the value represents an oversold area. From 30 to 70, the value will be within the zone of neutrality. And from 70 to 100, the value detects an overbought zone. This is important to know that the period of 14 sessions is recommended by Wilder. As explained before, the relative stress index is a bounded indicator that measures the internal strength of a share, the deviation of upward versus downward average. As recommended, a period of 14 sessions is used to calculate the relative stress index. You can see how the relative stress index is set up thanks to the formula. H is the average value of upward session over a given period, and B is the average value of downward session over a given period. The relative stress index is an oscillator indicator that moves between the 0 and 100 limits or bands. There are three distinct zones. You can see it: the oversold zone, the neutral zone, and the overbought zone. According to its evolution through different zones, we will obtain information on the psychology of the operator. On this graph, as recommended, a period of 14 sessions is used to calculate the relative stress index. The first signal appears when the RSY curve falls below 30%. This means that the General Motors stocks is undervalued and is likely to make an upward correction. On the contrary, Following a significant rebound, we observe that the enthusiasm of the capital provider exceeds the real value of the stock, so the situation has logically been subject to a trend correction. Then, between the third and the fifth signal, we notice that the price corresponds relatively to the real value. The relative strength index remains within the neutral zone. So we have here a rather stable price. For the next signals, we stay on the same logic of operation. Signal interpretation and identification. When the stock price or the share price is in an upward trend, the relative strength index tends toward 100. While it's in a downward trend, it will approach 0. The RSY below 30% or above 70%. The relative strength index reaches peaks or bottoms before the value itself. This signals that the value is likely to make a trend correction. RSY divergence. The relative strength index tends toward a trend contrary to the current trend in the value of a share. In this case, this may indicate an important trend reversal. The RSY through style figures. In practice, you will observe that the RSY has a propensity to draw a style figure. This can also be an indication of the evolution of this indicator. You can see here the different and the most common style figures. We have the double top, the shoulder head shoulder, the symmetrical vertex triangle, and also the symmetrical vertex triangle, but in the other way.